everybody. Where am I pointing this? Oh, right. Lovely. Hello, everybody. My name is Denis Neary. Today I'm going to be talking to you about the SSRH. I'm going to touch briefly on an introduction, just because I imagine there's a lot of people in the room who don't know what the SSRH is. We're going to talk about how it might work for your business. What are the first steps you can do today to get started on a road to the SSRH? A little bit about business case and the financial and non-financial benefits. How long it'll take, thank you very much. And I have two case studies. One's very, very specific and one is quite general. So there should be something in there for everybody. So first off, it's a financial incentive. There's two types. The capital expenditure, there's a CapEx grant of 30% and there's a tariff. The first phase was the CapEx phase and it opened in September 2018. The phase 2 opened in 2019, in June. Of course, COVID hit in 2020. At this stage, we've fully worked out all the kinks in the application process and we're fully open for applications on our website. Who can apply? So it's open to pretty much any business. The list is there: commercial, industrial, agricultural. ETS is not allowed. If you're in the ETS, you'll know it. Single domestic dwellings are not allowed as well. So it's either end of the scale, the extremes. Now, single domestic dwellings are allowed in the exception that they're part of a district heating scheme. Eligible space, water and process heating is eligible. Think of a hotel, if you like. They have all three in one. So the foyer, the restaurant, the bar, that's a space heating need. You've got hot water, direct water in the taps, and showers. And the process is the saunas, jacuzzis, and swimming pools. That's an example of all three. The exclusions would include open spaces, smoking sections, swimming pools outside, just in the sense that it's a waste of energy, and any electricity generation derived from the heat that we support. So also mandated by regulation heat. So for instance, if you have a building that has a 15% requirement to have renewable sources, if you provide 100% from the SSRH, then 15% of that heat will not be eligible. Now, you can do it in a couple of ways. You can take 15% of your area out of the SSRH, or the first 15% of your SSRH eligible units will be taken off. But it's negotiable, so we'll talk about that. And not heat produced for the purposes of SSRH is pretty obvious. If you're sitting at home going, how can I generate a business that I can use to draw down the SSRH, you're in the wrong frame of mind. If you are in a business that's using heat or consuming heat through the fossil fuels, and you're thinking, how can I reduce my heating bills? SSRH is the place to go. Hybrid scheme, like I said, so there's two sides to it. 30% is for air, water, and ground source heat pumps. Operational aid is a tariff. Paid every 3 months for 15 years. So and that's for biomass and AD gas generated heat. So biomass, pellet, woodchip, and AD gas must be derived from anaerobic digestion. So here's the payment cycle. You're talking, it's a tiered system, so you get more for the smaller your project is. So the less heat you consume in a year, the more per kilowatt hour that you're paid. I've got a couple of examples just to clear it up, I suppose. 1,200 megawatt hours per year will get you approximately 40,000 euros payments. 2,000 megawatt hours per year will get you about 43,000 in payments. 10,000 megawatts per year will get you 83,000 per year. And it tops out at 231,000 per year at 50,000 megawatt hours per year. Now, those are just numbers, just to give you an indication of what they actually mean. A typical 150 bedroom or 120 bedroom hotel with a leisure centre, somewhere between the 1,200 and 2,000 megawatt hours per year. So there's 100 towns in Ireland that have a couple of those hotels in them. 2,000 megawatt hours per year to 10,000, you're talking industrial sites. We've got an industrial site on our scheme. We pay them 65,000 a year. It's a kiln-based business, and they've moved from kerosene to wood chip, so they're very happy with their current situation. Fertilizer production plant that is currently going through the SSRH, their payment is going to be 145,000 per year. So we don't have anyone topping it out yet, but this is an example of the kind of heat users that are eligible, and this is the kind of payments they would get. The scheme itself is in two parts, if you like. There's a design phase and a completion phase. The very first thing that you're going to do tonight or today is scope out your own business. After that, there's an application process. You're going to need a design engineer, so we'll talk about that in a little while. You'll get a letter of offer from the SEAI. That letter of offer will state on it how much you're going to get paid every year and your heat cap. That'll give you an opportunity then to borrow money if you need to, create the installation. Installation is completed, commissioned, a completion report is sent into the SEAI. We'll send out an inspector. Inspector will sign off. Then you're on the payment cycle. Payment cycle, 3 months later, you'll get your first payment from the SSRH. That'll go on for 15 years. Ongoing obligations I'm going to touch on at the very end, but they're not that bad. First steps, starting today. Okay, scope. Is your project eligible? Is your business eligible? Very few businesses are going to be ineligible for the SSRH. And in some cases, you might have a part of your business that is ineligible. And we can talk about that, you can just leave it out. You've got the information at home, is just bill analysis. You're going to know whether it's fuel, what your fuel is it kerosene, is it gas, is it LPG? See how much you're spending every year, what you're spending per kilowatt hour. Work out then what fuel you're going to switch to. Get advice on that. We'll talk about this as well. And look, are you going to go with AD or are you going to go with biomass? For biomass, there's a couple of questions we get quite a bit. There's a few myths to be busted on biomass. Some people believe it's not suitable for their business because it doesn't react quick enough. But it can do. It depends on the system that you need. Are biomass boilers, do they consume a lot of space on site? Some do, some don't. I've given there some wood pellet biomass systems can be marginally around the same size as an oil system. The non-financial benefits for the SSRH come in two ways. One, you can take this as an opportunity to have a holistic design approach. Jason was talking about it earlier today. Take a helicopter view of your system. Look at your heat requirement. What's my heat requirement? Start there and design your biomass system to meet that heat requirement. This is where your design engineer is going to be indispensable. They can also maintain or retain your old fossil fuel system. So God forbid something happens or you can't get fuel, then you can always switch back to the gas system that you had in place. Make sure your planning permission is sorted, and I'm talking about the business as well as the boiler house. If you've got a hotel or a business that doesn't have planning permission, then you're going to have an issue with the SSRH application. Make sure your building regulations are being observed. Safety, health and safety, and environmental licensing. The last thing you want is the EPA to have an issue with your installation because you've changed your fuel type or you've increased your emissions. Choose a fuel type. So this is specifically for the tariff, of course. AG gas or pellet or wood chip. Different requirements for different things. Site suitability and site space available on the site is going to be a major factor. Wood chip. One of the big pros for wood chip is it's considerably cheaper than wood pellet, about 40% according to the January 22 prices. They're easier to produce locally. Some of our projects are going down the self-supply route, where they're registering with the WFQA, and for them, security of supply is a 25-year prospect. You know, they can look ahead to planting trees tomorrow that they're going to use on their business in 25 years' time and know exactly what it's going to cost them. Compared to pellets, the fuel is a little inconsistent, size, moisture content, and that affects the equipment and fuel feed mechanisms that you're going to have in place. They might be a bit larger as a result. Fuel storage might be a bit larger as a result. So look, if you have the space, use it, because it's cheaper in the long run. Wood pellet itself, lower maintenance costs. So if you're used to not having very high maintenance costs, you can less fuel jams, smaller fuel feed mechanism. So your oil system that you're replacing could be replaced pretty much straight out for a wood pellet system. Cons, slightly higher cost for the fuel because of the embedded energy in the process of making them. Annual heat cap, I'm going to touch on very briefly. Well, like I said earlier on, you get a letter of offer. And on that letter of offer, it's going to be a financial amount and an energy amount. Financial amount is what we're going to pay you, and the energy amount is how we derived it. Essentially, if you've got the poultry example, would be a very good one to go on. 1.227 kilowatt hours per bird is what the average poultry farmer requires to make a poultry hen. If you're using 1.2 kilowatt hours per bird, you're below average. We can see that from your historic fuel bills and what you've been producing. We're going to set your annual heat cap at 1.2 kilowatt hours per bird. That's what you've been doing before. We're not going to incentivize you to use more energy for the same number of birds. Now, you can produce less birds if you want. There's no issue there. Or you can use less fuel. You can go down to 1 kilowatt hour per bird if you want. But your payment is capped to save the taxpayers at 1.2, which is what your historic fuel was. So moving on. So this is a brief overview of the entire application process. The pre-application stage is the one you're starting today. That's scoping, looking at your fuel bills. It's in 2 phases. So there's design and completion. Once you do the scoping, you should have a rough idea where you're going. You're going to have to get advice from a designer. He'll take care of your application for you. It's a big part of our application to have the designer sign off on it. They're going to take on the liability if you're not happy at the end of the day. Once you get your letter of offer, you have 12 months to complete your installation. Now, this might be a very small amount of time for a large installation. If you think it's going to take 18 months or 2 years, let us know. We'll put that on your LOO. Installation itself, we found through experience that you need to allow about 4 months for lead times if you're installing a boiler, even if it's an average size boiler. There's no point leaving it, waiting 10 months till you've only 2 months left on your LOO and then ordering a boiler and finding out that you've a 4-month lead time on that. So take that into account. And if you have that problem, contact us. Let us know. We'll give you an extension. Completion and inspection, allow about 2 months. So once you are about a month away from being ready to be inspected, you can contact us, inform us, arrange a date with the inspector. He'll come out, have a look at your system, read your meters and sign off. After that, 3 months later, you'll get a check. Well, it won't be a check, it'll be a payment transfer. Ongoing obligations, as I said, I'd touch on them briefly. I've given the example of a bottle of whiskey here because one of the case studies I've given is for a distillery. But essentially, on one side you've got fuel coming in, and on the other side you've got whiskey coming out. In this case, it's per litre of alcohol, absolute. There's a sense check in our ongoing obligations. We're going to know through your fuel receipts how much fuel you're purchasing. We're going to know the efficiency of your boiler, and we're going to be able to read the heat on your meter, because that's what we're going to use to pay you. So one times the other should be equal to the other, and there's going to be difference. I mean, if you're working with Woodchip and you've got a moisture content difference of even a couple of percentage, there's going to be a difference in your efficiency. We'll allow for that. And your KPI, your industry KPI, I think for a large distillery, you're talking 9 kilowatt hours per litre of alcohol. For a small distillery, 12 kilowatt hours per litre of alcohol. So a ton of pellets, 4,800 kilowatt hours, should produce between 400 and 533 litres of alcohol absolute, depending on how big you are. So this is why we ask for fuel receipts, maintenance receipts, read your meters, and know what your output is, so we can see that you're still, you don't have an empty shed with boilers in it for the sake of having boilers in it. So I've got two example case studies. Like I said, one is very broad. This is a hotel. We all know what a hotel looks like, how it operates. This particular hotel has, I think, 120 bedrooms in a leisure centre. It could have 150 bedrooms and a slightly smaller leisure centre. You can get my drift. It consumes, or it meters, 1.2 million kilowatt hours per year. That's 1,200 megawatt hours per year. It converts from mains gas to wood pellet fuel. Mains gas is one of the cheapest fossil fuels gas, and wood pellet fuel is one of the most expensive biomass fuels. I use this example because I'm imagining a worst case scenario that this hotel can't have a wood chip site because of size restrictions. Their SSRH payment is going to be $39,120 per year. Because pellet is more expensive than mains gas, their additional fuel costs are going to be about $19,800 per year. Now, with additional maintenance costs that come with a biomass boiler, it's about $2,000 a year. So we take that into account as well. So their overall benefit is just shy of $20,000 a year. Estimated installation costs, $120,000, and the ROI on that is about 6.9 years. Now that could be 6.2 years or 7.3 years. You can imagine the variations on that between prices of installation and what. Just to give an indication, a large distillery, which is this is the very specific example. I think somebody said to me once, there's only probably about 5 people in the country that would be interested in this example. But if there's anyone from the food and drink industry, they'll break down their cost-benefit analysis in this way per product. So this site is a large site, producing 1.33 million litres of alcohol per year. They install a 2.5 megawatt wood chip steam generation boiler, cost of $800,000, operating at 9 kilowatt hours of KPI. So they know exactly to the cent what they're spending on fuel, and mains gas, it's going to be 4.1 cent per kilowatt hour, and wood chip being the cheapest biomass fuel, 4 cents. So there's a slight benefit to the wood chip, but at the same time, it's 0.4 cent. It's actually 3.5 cents, and 1.3 million kilowatt hours of fuel, of 1.3 million litres of alcohol, that'd take 27 years to pay back for the 800,000 that they're spending on the boiler. The SSRH payment included on that comes in at about 6.8 cents per kilowatt, or per litre of alcohol, at 90,000 per year. So the addition, we take into account 5,000 euros that you might have to spend on contractors to come in to service the boiler on top of your own maintenance costs. And so the overall benefit is just shy of 10 cents per kilowatt hour, or per litre of alcohol. I'm used to saying kilowatt hour for everything. To pay back that capital expenditure of 800,000 with a production rate of 1.33 million per year is going to take 6.2 years. The other benefits, other than that return on investment, is fuel security, fuel forecasting, and a totally 100% sustainable product. So what we talked about today, the introduction to the SSRH, just to let you know what it was. Of course, your first step today is going to be scoping. Look at your fuel bills. For the business case, we talked about the financial and non-financial benefits, and like I said, it's fuel security, the return on investment on the new equipment, and the sustainable product. Snags, they're there. Look, it's going to take a year. If it's your first time applying, it might take you longer. If you've done a couple of applications before, we're getting applications in the door now from design engineers that have done applications before, and they're returning an LOO in 2 months. So allow 2 to 3 months if you're using a design engineer that's already put in an SSRH application. Gave 2 examples, the hotel and the distillery. Don't have to go straight with the distillery if you have a large industry that if you have any business that's using a large amount of heat, look at the SSRH, call us, and we'll have a little chat with you, tell you where to go. Okay, I'm going to open the floor to any questions. Do you want to?
Hey, thanks for the presentation. I just have a quick question on the self-sourcing of fuel for the wood pellet or the wood chip boiler.
No problem.
For the overall sustainability of the solution, surely the sourcing of the fuel is of key concern to SEAI. Are there any regulations in place to guarantee if I self-source the fuel for this boiler that I'm doing it in a sustainable manner?
Yeah, there is. So all fuel that goes through the SSRH must be WFQA approved. So Noel and Sean over there in the WFQA stand will tell you all about that. So even though you can self-supply, you can self-supply as a supplier of WFQA approved fuel. So it's got all the RED II requirements to go along with that as well. So yeah, no problem. Thank you very much. Another question?
How you doing? What are the criteria to be a design engineer in the scheme?
Okay, so that's a decent question too. So we have 2 sizes of boiler, specifically when dealing with biomass. I'm gonna split it in 2. So chartered engineer status is required for most applications. So if it's a heat pump, chartered engineer status is needed. There's a couple of other requirements for installers as well. You know, they have to be approved by the equipment supplier or something like that. With biomass boilers specifically, we've got 2 tiers of requirements. So chartered engineer status is required to be a designer above 1 megawatt. But below 1 megawatt, a lot of those systems are often plug and play, and just buy you can install a 40 kilowatt stove in your business as well. And in those cases, we require them to be a designer. There's quite a few requirements, and actually, if I would point you in the direction of the website to check that out. But yeah, it's pretty much split between the megawatt and under a megawatt. I think the status is also tied to Ray. I'm just going to remember the status for the designer is approver. Yeah. So 1 megawatt over chartered and under watt a trained engineer. But yeah, check out our website, all the details on there, especially the terms and conditions in the TSORC. Any other questions?
Your examples show wood pellet, or if any does the SSRH work with if I have a micro digester on site, or if I'm producing biogas to replace gas?
Yeah, so I think I get that question. Now, don't go too far because I might have heard you wrong. So were you saying for AD gas?
I've a micro digester technology.
Yeah.
And so you're fitting wood pellet boilers into hotels, for example. But if I fitted a digester in there, would that qualify for SSRH?
Yeah. So right. So in the case of AD anaerobic digested gas, so we would need evidence that the AD digester the gas itself, not the digester, but the gas itself came from an AD digested source. So like the WFQA approved fuel, we just want to see some certification or some evidence that your gas is from that source. That gas then would be sold or invoiced to the hotel. The hotel burns it as usual in its new boiler. Now it needs to have a new boiler for your system because part of the payment is to pay back the investment in the boiler. So they install a new boiler. They're buying AD gas from you. You provide them with an invoice. We pay their SSRH payment at 3 cents per kilowatt hour for the first gigawatt hour that they consume per year for 15 years. Yeah. So that's a yes. For which? 2.9 something. I can go back actually, briefly. 27 slides, but I think it's 2.9 something. There you go, 2.95 cent per kilowatt hour for the first 1 gigawatt hour per year. Yeah. Okay. Well, folks, one more question, yeah?
All right, I'll just go again there. If I replace diesel with HVO as a drop-in fuel, is that appropriate for SSRH?
HVO, heavy
HVO.
fuel oil.
Yeah.
So if you're using heavy fuel oil or diesel.
Sorry, no, that's hydrogenated vegetable oil. It's a renewable fuel.
Yeah. No, as part of as one of our rules is that the fuel must be solid at point of ignition, unless it's AT gas. Sorry. Okay, so I think we might call it a day at that. I might get away. Okay, thank you very much.